Grief was once intimate and communal. Now, it's turned into something public, consumable, performative. Grief used to be held. Now, it's watched. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning after the worst night of your life. The kind of morning where the sun feels disrespectful for rising. Your phone is lighting up on the nightstand, hundreds of messages. Not from people bringing food, not from people who know how you take your coffee, lots of cream and sugar, but from strangers who only know the version of you that fits inside a square on their screen. They're asking if you're okay. They're asking what happened. They're asking for an update, as if grief is a series you're supposed to release in episodes. Somewhere between the condolences and the curiosity, you realize something strange. The world is witnessing your loss, but almost no one is actually holding it with you. We don't talk enough about what it means to hurt when everyone is watching. It used to be private. You wore black, you disappeared for a while. People sent cards and baked mac and cheese, and we'd all be up in Auntie's house, swapping stories, crying a little, and then cracking up as if they were right there next to us. We used to hold space for grief. Now, we post. We perform pain in pixels, we cry in captions, and somehow we're expected to keep our brand consistent even when our heart is breaking. Grieving in the public eye isn't just mourning what you've lost. It's mourning who you used to be before everyone started watching you lose it. Stage 1. But we often hear about the 5 stages of grief. But have you ever heard about the 5 stages of grieving in public? Stage 1, the performance of pain. When someone famous passes, the whole timeline is like, nah, I'm not good, I'm sick behind this one. Posting concert footage and old clips. But what happens when the loss is personal? When it's your mother, your child, your partner, and you have followers instead of family at your doorstep? When my husband transitioned, my phone didn't stop vibrating. But nobody was pulling up to my door or sitting with me in that quiet, the way grief used to be held. Instead, it was notifications, comments, messages that said things like, stay strong, or we're praying for you. And I remember sitting there thinking how strange this is. Thousands of people knew I was hurting, but grief still felt incredibly lonely. People were watching me mourn in real time, waiting to see if I would post, waiting to see if I was okay. And the truth is, I didn't even know yet. When the person you love dies, your life splits in 2. There's the version of you that existed before the loss, and the version of you that's trying to learn how to breathe after it. And somewhere in between those 2 versions of yourself, the internet is still refreshing your page. People will double tap your tears, but when it's time to sit in silence, suddenly they got errands, a flat tire, or a spiritual journey to attend. Grief isn't a show, it's a season. And you don't owe anyone your bloom before you survived your winter. Stage 2, the myth of strength, or being strong for my followers. We glorify resilience like it's a performance metric. Like, look how strong she is, they say, as if survival is an aesthetic. And if you're a Black woman, that expectation doesn't start on the internet. We've been cast in that role for generations. Somewhere between the strong Black woman and the superwoman narrative, we were taught that strength wasn't just admirable, it was required. That if something breaks around us, we hold it together. If something hurts us, we carry it quietly. You see it in the way that people talk about us. People will say things like, Black women can handle anything. And at first that sounds like praise, but it's not a command. They're really saying, you'll be okay, right? You don't need help, right? Strength can become a costume you feel obligated to wear, even when your spirit is asking for permission to fall apart. The truth is, Black women deserve the same softness we're always told we embody strength for. We deserve to grieve without performing resilience, not watch to see how we handle it or how gracefully we carry the weight. Strength shouldn't mean never being allowed to break. It's letting your followers know that you're a human first and a creative second. Stage 3, boundaries are a form of healing. Boundaries become a form of medicine, especially when dealing with an online community. After my loss, there were moments people never saw. They saw the tribute post, they saw the photos, they saw the words I chose carefully. But they didn't see the nights I sat on the floor of my living room talking to him out loud like he might answer. They didn't see the mornings when grief woke up before I did. And that wasn't secrecy. The most important parts happen off camera, off stages, off timelines, and the internet doesn't always understand that. When you share grief online, people often feel invited to your grieving. They'll ask questions you're not ready to answer. They'll want to know how you're doing, if you're better yet, if you found meaning in it yet. Grief is not a documentary. It's a lived experience. Boundaries are the way you remind yourself that your healing isn't a performance, because grief online can easily turn into a public exhibition. Sometimes, the most radical act of self-care in the public eye is simply saying, this part is mine. Stage 4, what healing looks like. Healing doesn't look like moving on. It looks like learning to move with. You carry the lesson, the loss, the person, and sometimes the world gets to see you stumble under that weight, and that's okay. Because grief isn't weakness in public. It's humanity refusing to be hidden. When my husband died, I didn't just lose him. I lost myself. Not metaphorically, not poetically, literally. I stopped posting. I stopped performing. I stopped answering text. For 4 months, I was posted up on my couch like the world outside my living room had nothing to do with me anymore. And when I finally got up, I walked to the mirror expecting to see the same woman who built her life on stages and screens, but grief rearranged my face. I looked at my reflection like a stranger was borrowing my bones. And in that moment, I realized something that nobody tells you about public grief. The camera is always waiting. But the last thing I wanted, the last thing I needed was to be under stage lights. People were inviting me to perform, and I remember thinking, how do you perform pain in front of people who only know how to digest it as entertainment? Grief doesn't have a runtime. Sometimes grief is just a woman sitting on the couch trying to remember who she was before the world expected her to be strong about it. The hardest part wasn't losing my voice. It was realizing the world was still asking me to use it. Stage 5, the responsibility of witnesses. For everyone watching, if you follow someone through their mourning, remember, you are not entitled to their closure. When someone grieves in public, the audience has a responsibility too. The internet has created a strange expectation that if somebody shares their pain with us, they also owe us the story's ending. They want the post where you say you're better. I may never be better. They want the moment where you tie the grief into a neat lesson of resilience and growth. But grief isn't like a series finale. There isn't always a clean resolution. Witnessing someone's grief online can trick us into believing we're part of the process. Watching something doesn't make you responsible for it, and it doesn't make you owed an ending. The most caring thing a witness can do is to remove the pressure for resolution, to let someone be sad without asking them to turn their sadness into inspiration, to check in privately instead of analyzing publicly, to remember behind every post, every caption, every carefully chosen sentence, there is a human being still trying to figure out how to live with what they've lost. So if you're someone who follows people you admire, artists, creatives, friends, through moments of grief, your role is simple: to be kind, to be patient, and to care without consuming. Click less and check in more. The difference between an audience and community is empathy, not spectators on Beyonce's internet. Authenticity is the only language grief truly understands. And maybe when people see you survive the unscripted, they'll remember how to love the unfiltered too. Thank you.